that for some reason every time I come home, it's still there. So, I ran for city council for the first time in 2007. 2006, 2007. Back then I was this young, energetic guy who was just really excited about trying to find every lever I could find to transform community life in our city. And, we talked about the kind of traditional municipal issues, and, transportation is critical, and transit is critical, and housing is critical, and jobs are critical. And every, road that we went down, the further we got down that road, the closer it got to education and our children. And we found ourselves just realizing that all the things what all these things have in common is children. Another thing that I'll tell you is this. Minnesota, we're a healthy state, we're a homeownership state, we're an education state, we're a low unemployment state. We boast a whole lot of areas in which we lead the nation. And one of those areas that we don't boast is disparities. Mm-hmm. That we see some of the worst disparities in the nation. In some of those same areas that we plant our state flag. I remember telling some folks when I first ran for city council, I love Minnesota so much, I want it in my neighborhood. And so, we're talking about equity. And we spend a lot of time in City Hall and in community meetings and all around, I know you do too, talking about equity, talking about our disparities, talking about the fact that in St. Paul, in the United States, in Minnesota, we can still predict the child's expected life outcomes more accurately based on what she looks like and what zip code she lives in than how hard she works in school. The fact that that's not fair to her, and it's just not sensible in terms of our local and regional and national economy, it won't work. Especially as our demographics change. In St. Paul, we're now a majority people of color. Some people call it a majority minority city. I can't figure out how you could be a minority and a majority at the same time. But I digress. All that to say is this. Equity sometimes feels like a word that's hard to define, right? This amorphous word. A long time ago I went to business school. And for my dean in business school, equity was actually pretty easy to define. In corporate life and in the private sector, equity means ownership. Equity means decision-making power. And equity means the ability to build transferable wealth, right? To participate in the financial benefits as a company or as a community thrives in a way that I can pass forward to my children. All that to say is my passion for young people, and specifically my passion for connecting our children to nature, is about telling them that this is yours, that this planet is yours, that this river is yours, that this park is yours, that this trail is yours, that this community is yours, and that we need you to treat it like an owner. And so we're a river city, although many of us don't even know it yet. St. Paul, here's your St. Paul trivia for the morning. We have 17 miles of riverfront, which is more than any city in America. And we don't really know it. We don't really spend a whole lot of time at the river because we've sort of turned our cities back on the river over the last generation. We're a city because 165 years ago somebody said, hey, look at this, all this river. And yet, it's one of our largest, anyone who's been anywhere knows that the power of water to be a social, to be a cultural, to be an economic asset is pretty well defined. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And we take our greatest asset, our founding characteristic, and build bridges to get over it. We treat it like a problem. Instead of saying, how do we maximize the opportunity that is there? I'm a young person who grew up with the benefit of just grass and the benefit of the opportunity to just run until I got tired and then just fall down in the grass. And simple things like that are critical to our young people's upbringing. And what I've learned is, I always tell young people, when I talk to young people, I always tell them that they need to watch out for a certain word. I say, every time you hear somebody, especially somebody older than you, say the word, the F word, future, what were you thinking? That you need to look up like they just said your name, right? Because it is your name, right? We talk about the future, we're talking about you. We're talking about the extent to which you will either pay for or benefit from the decisions we're making today. That's what, anytime you see, I always tell students, anytime you hear somebody say future, you need to pay attention, because we're talking about you. We know that our climate is changing, and I know I got to get out of your way because you have a busy agenda here. But when we think about climate change, we don't always think about cities like St. Paul. We don't think about ourselves necessarily. We know that we've had just some crazy extreme weather events with, blizzards and record snowfall. We know that that we've seen our river at record flood stages for record periods of time. We know that our streets are torn up. We know what's happening with our energy bills and our gas bills, but we don't necessarily explicitly connect that to something going on in our climate. We know that we just last year had a rock slide where just across the river from us, 400,000 pounds of rock dropped from a bluff onto the street below. We don't always connect these things with something bigger going on in our climate and in our community. We have to have our children owning nature. And so in St. Paul, we're working to bring our children and our families back to the river. We're working to create first camping experiences. Asha, my children and I, just years ago, spent a night in the tent for the first time right in the backyard of one of our rec centers in the city. And had a great time. Brought out animals from Como Zoo, our free municipal-owned zoo that we have here in St. Paul. And got a chance to just camp, right? Urban camping experience. That's important work. My children grew up, woke up the next morning and said, "Can we do it again tonight?" I said, "I don't think so." I think we'll get kicked out if we try to do it again tonight. But the work that you all do, and I'll get out of your way, but the work that you all do every day is so critical, and I know that sometimes it probably feels small in comparison to the issues and the challenges that we see on the global level, in comparison to the issues and the challenges that we see on the national level, many of which, frankly, those divisions are front and center in Minnesota for us today. But I thank you for your work, and I appreciate your work because on some level, there's nothing bigger that we can do. There's nothing bigger that we could even aspire to do than show our children that this planet literally belongs to them. So I appreciate your work. I appreciate you being a partner with us. I appreciate the opportunity for our St. Paul City staff who are in the room. Would you wave your hand, St. Paul City staff? And St. Paul and Minnesota community members, I just appreciate the opportunity for us to kind of be in this space and learn from each other because we're truly teammates in this work. So welcome to St. Paul. While you're here, get out and enjoy kind of what we have to offer. Spend some money downtown and enjoy our city while you're here. Thank you so much. Experiences like this and they're a partner with us on so many different issues. So I want to actually say thank you to NLC.